Thank you all. Want to give a specific shout out to Easy Micro, Myers, as well as Jack and everyone. It's been great working with you all. Mike, you can MC me anytime. So as he said, I'm with Apogee Insurance Group. We specialize in both professional and management liability insurance, and our number one product, both by premium and also policy count, is cyber liability insurance. Last year, our book surpassed $20 million, specifically in cyber, and we quoted cyber liability for 5,000 different businesses for cyber alone. So I'm kind of going into really, what cyber insurance is, but the one thing, I really want you keeping in mind for your business is it's not if, it's when. It's not if you're going to be the victim of a cyber liability attack. It's when it happens. And when it does happen, are you prepared? Will your business be able to stay afloat? We've heard a lot of great examples of just how scary it really is, but the truth of the matter is there are people that have full-time jobs. Their full-time jobs are to be professional hackers. And they're throwing the biggest fish net they can all over the world, really just looking for quick paydays. So just a quick overview, really just of everything. I'm going to define what cyber is, the need for it, some frequently asked questions, and then a couple of real examples that we've seen. So, when you hear cyber, everyone, the traditional mindset is, it's, that's when people steal credit cards. I don't hold people's credit cards. I don't need cyber. That's not for me. The truth of the matter is it's much more than that, and it's much more broad than that. What cyber is, it's there to protect your business against really just a wide range of internet and technology-based risks. Those specific to system failures, any different form of cyber attack, a data or privacy breach, or a media liability event. A lot of people aren't thinking about really what comes with a cyber liability policy and what that does for your business. Just diving into really what's involved in a standalone cyber liability policy. Not to get too technical, but just from the first party insuring agreements, first party is you, the business owner, as well as your entire staff. So what a cyber liability policy covers for you as the business owner is breach response. It covers all costs to hire the forensics team that David and Jack had talked about, and everything that really comes with that and investigating how someone got into your system. Cyber liability also covers crisis management and public relations. Imagine you open up your business's website and it's advertising something you don't do, or in most cases, something very heinous. Imagine opening up your website and that's what's there. Cyber liability, our cyber liability policy, covers those reputations to repair that. I know David touched heavily on ransomware events and cyber extortion, and he also talked about business interruption costs. Imagine you're a really big, retail business. Black Friday is probably huge for you. Imagine if you come into your business on Black Friday expecting a monster day of sales, and your business is completely shut down. What cyber liability looks to cover in this instance is the amount of revenue that you would have gained during Black Friday and a monster day of sales for you. It also looks to cover digital asset restoration. A lot of times with these different types of cyber attacks, it will fry your system to the point where you can't use it anymore. So the cyber liability policy kicks into place here to get your business back up and running, as well as it covers all the costs needed to do that. Lastly, cyber crime. You're going to hear, funds transfer fraud, social engineering, a lot of terms in cyber liability. They're covering the same thing, but they're all using their own adjective. So my biggest recommendation when looking at cyber liability policies, and this is something we look at every day, is really asking, okay, what is this covering? What does this mean? Because a lot of times it may be covering the same thing, but you as a business owner really want to understand that. When you look at funds transfer fraud, social engineering, if you're any kind of company that's constantly buying items and sending money, and you send $10,000 to a faulty email, what happens when that $10,000 leaves your account? Cyber liability policy covers you for that. so that you're not liable for it. You're going to hear, insurance, you hear first party, you hear third party. Who's the second party? That's the insurance company. From a broker standpoint, I'm not just one game in town. We utilize 65 different companies, and one thing I really study is what coverage they are offering, what coverage they're sublimiting, and really just what goes in to the pricing of it and the underwriting. David talked heavily about, the different applications, and every different market, that we're utilizing, they ask different things, and they're also covering different things for a different price. But in terms of the third party, that's everyone you're doing business with. All of your patients, all of your customers, all of your students, anyone that's utilizing your system. In the event of any kind of, cyber attack, this is where cyber kicks in from a third-party insuring agreement. It covers the cost to hire Jack to defend you in court. It covers any damages resulting from a cyber attack. So credit card gets stolen based off of your system. That's where the cyber liability policy kicks into play. I know Jack had touched on HIPAA violations, but it is something that is really becoming more prevalent. If you are in the healthcare space, you also may know a new software system several hospitals are using called Pixel. Recently, just got breached. A hospital in Wisconsin had to notify 3 million patients just based on this breach. Think about the costs that come with that. HIPAA violations as well. When you go into a doctor's office and they say, sign here and here, they may tell you it's HIPAA violations, but at the end of the day, what it is you cannot transfer medical sensitive records specific to you without your consent. So when you sign on that line, sometimes it's even hidden, that's really what they're asking for, your consent in order to transfer medical records. Specifically from third-party insuring agreements as well as multimedia content liability. Imagine a hacker gets into your system and starts slandering someone that you're doing business with. You're going to think, oh my goodness, my business is fried. How are we ever going to really recover from this? That's where the third-party insuring agreements, again, it really kicks into play and makes sure that your business can sustain this type of attack. And PCI fines and assessments. I put this last because PCI, and I'll jump into our next slide, that is payment information. When you think about cyber liability and you're thinking about, credit card information, people steal that, it's not just credit card information. Given this day and age, it's a lot more broader than that. It's credit card information, it's bank account numbers, it's crypto wallets. In terms of, when hackers get a large sum of money, a lot of times they're transferring it into crypto because once it's in the crypto blockchain, it's almost impossible to get back. Jack touched on personally identifiable information, but when you look at your business and what might be involved on your system, you're going to know or not know that you're holding your customers' email addresses, home addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers. Think of all the information that you might have in your system that if a hacker were to get in, what would you do? And then lastly, personal health information goes hand in hand with HIPAA. Health status, blood type, surgical history, personal sensitive information that when you look at cyber and what's in the data and what is in the records that you're storing, whether it be hopefully not on the Excel spreadsheet, but in your system, that if a hacker were to get in, you are liable for that information. This is just some simple things just in terms of preventing malware attacks that we reviewed, and David touched heavily on it. But the one thing I'm really just going to point out is just never clicking a link from an unknown source. If you're a business owner, you're probably well aware of that. The question is your staff well aware of that? If they get an email from the owner, you as the business owner, saying go to CVS and buy me five $500 American Express gift cards, they're probably not going to say no to the owner. They're like, that's the boss. I'm just going to do it. What's going to happen in that scenario? Is your staff trained to be like, I don't think Jack's emailing me to go to CVS and buy five $500 gift cards, because that seems kind of sketchy. But again, if you're an employee, just started, got an email from the owner, you're not going to second guess it. You're just going to go and do it. What happens in this scenario? Is your business properly covered? In terms of marketing cyber, so really quoting it, really just across the board. We break it up, from like a standard risk and a complex risk. When we look at a standard risk, we also call that just a low risk business class. A company that's looking for under $3 million in limits. A company that has a revenue under $35 million. But I think the most important thing personally, and I hope you all take away from this, is if you have no loss history. That means that you've never been the victim of a cyber liability attack. If you're thinking about your business and I don't currently have a cyber liability policy in place, even though I've never been the victim of a cyber liability attack, take advantage of it while you are considered a low risk business. That will help from a premium standpoint. When we look at more complex risks, we look at municipalities, school districts, technology companies looking for standalone cyber liability policy. This is more managed service providers related. But any company that's looking for more than $4 million in limits, an insurance company is going to look at that and be like, well, why are they looking for it? We get requests all the time. Hey, I have $100,000 in revenue. I want a $20 million cyber liability policy. First answer is no. That's just not going to happen. And why is that? Because why are they asking for $20 million in cyber if they have $100,000 in revenue? Sounds like they're about to be attacked tomorrow. And that's really the mindset behind it. And these two endpoints go hand in hand. If you are the victim of a cyber liability claim, you are considered a more complex risk. Because when an insurance company looks at you, it goes, what happened in this claim? How did someone get into your system? How much was paid out? And how did you, as the business owner, react to this cyber liability hack that happened? So when we look just at the specific business, from a standard standpoint, health professionals, lawyers, accountants, retail businesses, contractors, but there's a million standard businesses. We get into more complex risks. It's really municipalities, school districts, casinos, technology companies, really just companies, line of businesses that are more vulnerable to any form of cyber attack. But at the end of the day, from the standard end, it is very easy to get cyber liability, and I highly encourage every business owner here to get it. Just some fun ransomware statistics in 2023. On average, it took 49 days to identify that a ransomware attack was occurring. 71% of businesses became victims of ransomware attack in 2022. 72% of those paid the ransomware to recover their systems. They knew that their business couldn't be down for 4 days. Maybe their business couldn't be down on Black Friday because they really rely on that day for sales. A hacker's got my system. They're asking for 60 grand. I don't have the cyber liability in place. I'm just going to take the 60 grand out of my gross profit, pay the hacker, and hope I get my system back. Just some more fun facts to scare you. There's a cyber attack every 39 seconds. 92% of these are delivered via email. I'm telling you right now, these hackers are getting very good at using company logos, using Bank of America logos, using Myers Insurance logos. If it does not seem right and you are not properly trained on it, can your business survive this type of cyber liability attack? The amount of money that is really being paid out when an insurance company is not properly prepared is what's putting a lot of companies under. Just in terms of some ways to really prevent ransomware attacks, again, I'm just going to reiterate it. Never clicking unsafe links. VPNs on public networks. David, I love the example at an airport. I came into this hotel today. I had a bunch of work I had to do. I looked for Wi-Fi that was available. I joined this hotel's Wi-Fi. There could have been a guy sitting outside with another private VPN outside. Could have also said Hyatt Hotel, but it wasn't. So if you're not connecting to a VPN that you're secure of, they can infiltrate your system and completely ruin your business. So I think, the big thing that I really want everyone to, walk away from this with is the care for cyber liability. And when you care about your business, you want to know if something happens, what do I do? And it all starts with what's currently in place for you and your business for cyber liability. It could be nothing, it could be something, or you could be somewhat properly insured. But it all starts with asking the questions as to what's on your cyber liability policy. Ask the questions, hey, is this covering social engineering? Is this covering funds transfer fraud? If this happens, how does my cyber liability policy really kick into play? So when the dark day comes, am I properly insured? This is something that when you ask the question, do I have a cyber liability policy or is it included on a package with my insurance? This is a very important question to ask, because if you ask just a run-of-the-mill insurance agent, do I have cyber liability? They may tell you yes. But the fact of the matter is, you have a cyber liability policy included in a bundle with other coverages that's sublimited at $50,000. Jack, I think you would laugh. $50,000 is probably one phone call with you. Yeah. So that's not including notification costs. That's not including hire a forensics team. God forbid there was a $500,000 ransomware that you paid. You're not insured for that. So you need to ask the questions, do I have a cyber liability policy, or is it included just on a bundle of insurances? And ask for the specific limits on your cyber liability policy. If you're a $35 million revenue company and you have a $50,000 sublimited cyber liability policy, you're not properly insured. You need to look at what limits are on your policy and do they go hand in hand with what you're doing from a revenue standpoint. When you look at your cyber liability policy, does it cover what your business is doing? If you're a healthcare provider, are HIPAA violations covered? Because if not, you're paying for those violations out of your own pocket. If social engineering, wire transfer fraud is not included in your cyber liability policy, and you send $500,000 to a faulty account, you're out of luck. That's on you. That's why I'm really emphasizing caring about what is currently on your cyber liability policy, and ask the questions, if this happens, how does my cyber liability policy really kick into play here? Some specific exclusions to review that are on the handout, but I really just want to touch base on a lot of them, and it goes back to really just asking the questions, what's on my cyber liability policy? Are there specific sublimits? A lot of times, social engineering, wire transfer fraud, it's sublimited at $250,000. It is available to get up to the full limits, but if you're not asking that question, you'll never know. The contingent bodily injury and property damage. You're probably thinking, how would an email phishing event hurt someone physically? It's an email. But if you're thinking about it from a hospital, and they're keeping people alive based on a system that they're using, and that system shuts down, their heart stops, they die. Are they covered from the cyber liability standpoint? You look at a big manufacturing firm, and they've got 80 systems going on at once, and doors are flying everywhere. This is something we have seen, where a system gets hacked, and a door falls 60 feet from the air, hits and kills someone. When the forensics team looks into what happened, it's a cyber liability claim, because someone got in their system, ransomware wasn't paid, they infiltrated the system, a door fell 60 feet in the air and killed someone. So when you think of just clicking one email and what that could do, from a business owner, you want to be thinking, these are real risks at hand. You've probably heard of bricking coverage, whether you've seen it on CNN, LinkedIn. I touched on it before, but sometimes your system gets infiltrated and it is not usable anymore. You want to be asking your insurance agent, hey, if this happens, do I have bricking coverage included in my policy? What it does is the cost to repair both your physical and software data. So if you have a computer, cell phone, anything that was interrupted by a cyber attack, is the costs that are associated with replacing all of those costs. Breach response costs outside the limits. That's a really big thing that you definitely want to be asking, because if you have $1 million cyber liability policy and you have an attack that costs $1.5 million, are you on the hook for $500,000? Or does your cyber liability policy include any claims that would fall outside of your policy? That is something that you want to be asking your insurance agent. And the more you ask them this, the more they're going to be thinking. The more they're going to want to make sure that your business is properly insured. Media liability, 9 times out of 10, these are included with cyber liability policies unless it is specific that all you do is media coverage. The reason I put that in there is if you are a media-focused company, you're going to want your own media professional liability policy. Frequently asked questions. My business is small. I don't have a lot of data. Why do I need cyber liability? The only reason you hear about, huge corporations getting attacked when you turn on the news at night is because they got the biggest payday. But the reality of the situation is most hackers are looking for smaller businesses because in their minds, they think you as a small business owner don't care about cyber liability policies. And think about it, it's a Wednesday in February. If I make $60,000 off this small business, that's a pretty good day for them. Can you as a business owner handle $60,000 just coming out of your gross profit? It's a big thing that we really need to focus on. I don't hold or process credit card data. Do I still need coverage? 1,000%. Even if you're that business that say, I use third party for everything, I don't hold anything. Well, if someone's credit card information gets stolen, they're going to name you in the lawsuit. What are you going to do? You can't just show up representing yourself. You need to hire an attorney. You need to hire a forensics team that can show that it was nothing within your system that caused this cyber liability breach. So even if you think you're not holding any data, holding any credit card information, you still have a duty to represent yourself in court, but also you have to notify every customer that you're doing business with. This costs money. This is where cyber liability becomes so important. I've got just a couple specific claim examples that we've seen that have been relevant in this area, but they really happen all over the country. But we have a doctor's office that had a flood. They hired a contractor and said, just clear out the whole basement, everything in there, throw it out. What was down there was their backup server. There were 54,000 records, patients, former patients, businesses they were doing business with. That prompted a HIPAA violation. The total cost for hiring a forensics team, HIPAA violations, notification cost was $250,000 that this non-insured had to pay out of their pocket. Back to school. A community college came back a week before classes are about to start. Someone in the administration team got an email, said, hey, I just have a quick question about classes that are available for next semester. Email looked legit. They opened it. It had ransomware involved with it. This completely shut the school down. They had to send students home. They couldn't start school on time. They had to hire a forensics team to investigate. They also had to hire a technology firm to train their staff on what links to click or not click. The total cost for this was $343,000 that they paid solely out of their own pocket. And this last one is very similar to the claim example that Jack had talked about, but you're about to buy your dream home. You're working with your real estate agent. Everything looks great. Real estate agent gets an email from Bank of America. The logo was legit. The email looked legit. All of the wording involved within the email seemed very efficient. The couple gave the real estate agent $500,000, wired it to a bank account. Criminals transferred it overseas. The couple thinks they're about to pack up, go down the shore, and all of a sudden they realize they don't have a house. The funds were completely gone. The total cost overall was $650,000 because not only do you have to repay this couple for the $500,000 that you stole from them, but there was also $150,000 in legal fees with that. So you think about your business, you think about cash flow, you think about what would happen if I went through a cyber liability attack. Are you properly insured? Hackers are sitting there right now praying that you don't care, praying that you're just rolling the dice because they know that's how they can make an easy payday and they know that you don't care about it, so it's simple for them. So I highly encourage everyone to take advantage of David's vulnerability scan and really to speak at everyone at Myers Insurance about cyber liability and obtaining a standalone cyber liability policy. The vulnerability scan that David runs is another name for it is just called an ethical hack. At a bare minimum, you are going to be terrified of the data he's going to pull from your website. He'll pull everyone's home addresses, phone numbers that you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I had no idea I had this. But if you don't take advantage of it, you're never going to know. And that's really where the cyber market really is going. From a pricing standpoint, it was a race to the bottom. $1 million in coverage for $1,000 in pricing. Then the pandemic hit. Everyone got sent home, and everyone was getting hit with cyber attacks. Schools, small businesses, employees not properly trained on what emails to open and or not open. Pricing has gone through the roof. Why is that? It's because cyber liability insurance carriers are constantly having to pay out claims. In order for them to remain in business, they have to raise their rates. Now that we're coming out of the pandemic, I have seen a large shift. I wouldn't say it's decreasing in pricing, but I would say it's more flattening, which is a good thing, specifically if any of you business owners are out there that have not been the victim of a cyber liability claim, take advantage of it now. You're still considered a low risk business, and that will be advantageous for you from a premium standpoint. But at the end of the day, my biggest overall message is it's not if, it's when you get hit with a cyber liability attack. Do you have a plan in place? How's your business going to react? And can your business sustain the awful things that are really occurring in the cyber marketplace? So thank you all for allowing me to speak here today. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to my MC.